Use your DVD player's remote control to rapidly navigate to any chapter in this video. Here are some important notes for using these videos. This video shows you how we put our aircraft together. This presentation is not reviewed or endorsed by Vans. You need to follow your directions and not rely on our demonstration. Your plans and instructions may have changed since we produced this video. You cannot rely on this video for accuracy or applicability to your project. We assume the viewer has read and is familiar with the Getting Started section of the Builder's Manual. This section outlines the tools and construction practices required to build this kit. For example, we will not repeat the need for proper part deburring and preparation before each step. We do not suggest or endorse any corrosion protection for your aircraft. That decision is a personal choice. We use minimal amounts of primer on contacting surfaces at the owner's request. On all screens throughout the video, in the lower right corner, you will find the page and step number from the Vans assembly manual that corresponds to the task being demonstrated on the screen. In addition to using the fast forward button on your DVD player's remote, you can also use the chapter skip key to quickly move throughout the video. This is the actual crate for the fuselage kit, and we are unpacking it for the very first time. If you have already received your kit, then you can skip over this short section by using your remote control. If you haven't received your kit yet, it's very enlightening to see exactly what parts you will be dealing with during the fuselage construction. For step 1, we will use the center section assembly, and we need to countersink some holes for nut plate installation on the other side. We will also countersink a set of holes for a nut plate at each end. We will use our countersink tool with the appropriate 100-degree bit. For the nut plate holes at each end, we're going to find that one of the holes is a little difficult to get our countersink tool in place because of a rivet that's in the way of the tool seating flat. So we'll use our manual tool, which works just fine. We can go ahead and cleco in the nut plates and squeeze our rivets in for the two end nut plates. And then in the center, we have our countersunk pop rivets. And here's a look from the other side. We have one more rivet to set for each of these two in the center, and one more rivet to set in these nut plates at each end. In step 2 and 3, these are the parts we will use. We're going to install the retainer block onto 2 holes here. First, we're going to drill out these 2 holes with our number 11 drill bit, and then we can bolt this on. And now we're going to repeat the same procedure on the center section at the 2 holes. We'll drill them out first, size 11, and then install the plastic block just like we did before. In step 4, we're going to take 1204D and place it on top of our center section. And it's roughly going to be lined up with the edge here. Now, one easy trick is to take a bolt, a 1/4-inch bolt, and put it into the hole. This is the only 1/4-inch hole on here, and there's one at the other end. That. And then we can put this on top, and when the bolt hits the top of the shelf here, we know that it is properly aligned. And the same with both at the other end. We can then clamp it with about 3 clamps along the edge here to hold it tight. Now we're going to take this assembly and place it on the bottom skin. So I'm going to go get the bottom skin and lay it on the table. Here we have the bottom skin in place, and we're going to take our center section and line the flanges up with 2 sets of holes, and we're going to cleco this to the bottom skin. We can loosen our clamps as necessary to adjust this left and right to get the holes to line up. And I will use clecos into the flanges on both sides so that this is aligned nicely, and then reposition the clamps. With both flanges clecoed securely to the bottom skin, we can then reclamp. We can use as many clamps as we want to get it nice and tight. And our goal now is to drill with our number 30 drill bit all the holes that go into the center section all the way across. We'll start at the center and work to the left and to the right. With every other hole drilled, we're going to remove the center section from the skin and place it down flat so it'll be much easier to drill the rest of the holes. Now that all the holes have been drilled, there are two that need to be opened up to size 11 as per the directions. One here in the center, and one towards the end over here. I'm going to uncleco everything and remove. Of course, we're going to deburr our holes. Now the holes, as per our directions, in this area need to be countersunk with our machine countersink tool. And then the appropriate holes that match up with those holes on this piece need to be dimpled. So we're going to dimple this, countersink these so that they will fit together, because we will have flush rivets in this area as per our directions. Now we're adjusting our countersink so that we get the 1/4 inch size countersink that we want as per our directions. And we'll verify the size by putting a gauge over the top with a 1/4 inch hole, make sure it's at least that size. And we'll continue on now for the rest of the rows, for the rest of the holes that need it. Now we've deburred both sides of the center section where we drilled, and both sides of this piece. Now, where we did the countersinking on the center section, we need to correspondingly with those same holes dimple these so that the dimple fits into the countersink. And we'll use our hand squeezer to create these dimples. With the panel laying flat on the bench, we can now dimple using our hand squeezer. We selected the proper dies, and it's very important to make sure we are dimpling in the correct direction so that it matches the piece that we countersank previously. It's easy to hold the panel up to the center section that we previously countersunk and make sure that the holes match up and fit very nicely. In step 5 and 6 on 20-03, we're going to separate part 1204 by simply cutting, and 1204T, we'll cut these apart by removing it in the center area here. In step 7, we take the part we just separated, this is a skin attach flange, and it will be clecoed and riveted on to the corners, and there will be one on both sides. Now we've put the aft bulkhead back on top of the center section and just clecoed it in place. We're now going to take 1204F, and there's a left and a right, and this piece is going to be attached on each side at this location, and the holes all match up here, and I will go ahead and cleco this in place. Of course, the blue covering is going to be removed. We're leaving it on here just so it shows up a little easier. And we have one on the other side also. Now we want to look very carefully at our instructions, because we're now going to rivet the aft bulkhead to the center section along with these two components. Some of these holes will not get riveted. Let's mark them to match our directions. Now I have marked the holes that I'm going to rivet, and the ones that aren't marked are not going to get rivets at this time. So we want to refer to our instructions to make sure we use the proper rivets. Flush heads over here on the right, and then the dome head on the left side over here. And then we'll have an assortment of rivets on each of these arms here. Here's the conclusion of step 1. In step 2, we want to turn our center section assembly upside down and set it on our table. If we're careful, it will balance. Just be very careful. And then we want to locate the side skin and attach it to the side skin. Here we have the side skin up on the table, and it is clecoed to the side of our center section. I'm using 6 clecos. Now, the bottom of the side skin won't sit very evenly on the table because it is not straight, but it should securely attach with the clecos in the pre-drilled holes. Now we want to take one of the skin stiffeners that we separated in the prior step and insert it in this area right here as per our directions. It should fit very nicely, and we will cleco it in place. And once it's clecoed to the side skin, we can then drill through the 4 existing holes in the stiffener into the top of the heavy center section. Here are the 4 clecos from the skin to the skin stiffener. And the holes we need to drill are right there. And of course we'll repeat this for the other side. And then rivet these in place as per the directions. Page 2102, step 1. We need to dimple the appropriate holes in the baggage floor as specified in the directions. And here are the left and right baggage floors, all dimpled as per the directions. We used 3 different size dimple dies in the process. Some were number 30, number 40, and number 19. And all were dimpled with the flush side on the top. Now, the baggage floor is going to be located along our holes we drilled previously. Notice I've clecoed from underneath, and this will allow us easier access while riveting. We want to be careful not to scratch the floor with our rivet squeezer. As we'll see, it is a little bit tight quarters as we get the squeezer into that area. These are the size rivets we'll be using to attach the floor panels. Now notice I've put some tape on the squeezer right in this area here because this will be rubbing up against the floor when we go to squeeze. So this will help us prevent from scratching the floor. If the rivets are kind of tight to get in, you can clean out the hole with a short drill bit, this, and just twist that in and twist it through, and that will open up the hole so that it's easier to get the rivet in. And we can also squeeze the rivets with the bulkhead laying in this position on the bench, if that's easier to do. Note there was one pulled or popped rivet at this location, and the two longer rivets were placed in the thicker portion. We will proceed now to the other side. If you're working by yourself, a strap like this one made out of duct tape will help keep the panel out of your way while riveting. Step 3, page 21-02. Here are baggage ribs, 1221, left and right. And our first step is going to be to dimple the holes so that they correspond to the dimples we made in the baggage floor. Let's go take a look. The 1221 baggage rib will line up with the holes we dimpled right in here. And the one for the right, of course, will go right next to it. And our job is to get these dimples that we put in this floor into the flange here on both ribs. And we will rivet as per the directions. And remember, the directions say that the rivets on the bulkhead need to be from the side of the bulkhead. In other words, we're going to rivet from in between the area down there. We also have two more sets of baggage ribs, 1222 and 1223, which are also going to be attached to the baggage floor. 1222 will be located here, and then 1223 here on both sides. Here we have all 6 ribs in place, and now we want to rivet them, of course following our directions for the riveting. Remember that rivets are to be pulled from this side of the bulkhead going up. Take a look at the back side, or actually the top side. We have it clecoed, and then we can commence riveting. I've straddled the table so that we can get into riveting. And we will use our hand riveter to do this. I also have propped it up with a board to keep the lips from touching the table. And if necessary, a drill bit can be used to open up the hole to make the insertion of the rivet a little easier. Now, the rivets at the very bottom will need the little wedgie. So I'm going to push the wedgie all the way forward. And then we can put our gun on there. So the wedgie's sitting here, so when we squeeze, we will get the rivet to set nice and straight. And that sets them real nice. This is a cleco on the other side we'll take out and then rivet that. I'm having a tremendous amount of trouble getting my handheld rivet gun to fit in that channel until I found this one. The pivot point here is different than having the pivot point up here. As in this example, the pivot point is here, much closer in line, and that means that the space required for these handles is going to be much greater compared to here with the pivot point way back from the center, and will require less space for the handles. In step 5, we're going to attach nut plates, and there will be 6 along each edge for a total of 12, and they will be placed where we previously dimpled the areas for the nut plates. Back here. So we need to dimple the holes on each ear so that they fit nicely behind here where we previously dimpled, and then we'll rivet with a flush rivet with our squeezer. My dimple die was a little too large here, it interfered, so I ground it down. There's a small flat spot right there. This allows me to come in here and squeeze it. And it's just slightly dimpled, but that's all we're looking for. And we will use a silver cleco to hold it in place. And then we can take our rivet, place it inside, and then squeeze it. Step 6, page 2102, we're going to separate these two parts. This is the rear spar receptacle support. Step 7, 1206C, there's 2 of these. These are the spar receptacles. Now we want to take and put this into our rear spar and get a nice fit by filing this out. Do that for the left and the right, and then mark each piece as left or right. Now we can note the top. There's a top and bottom. The top has a very small flat edge up there. Just about see it. That's so that we don't get it inverted. And the holes won't line up if it's inverted also. On the outside, I use the Scotch-Brite wheel. On the inside, I simply used some paper, because I didn't want to take too much off. Basically just got off the tooling marks and don't want to take off any more than necessary. And we'll take this up to the stub and see how it fits. Here's the right rear stub from the wing. And our piece, our socket, our receptacle fits very nice. It moves on easily and is nice and tight with no play. Nice and solid in there. This is the 1206C bulkhead. Now at each end, we're going to sandwich in our receptacle, our spar receptacle. We have the support that we previously separated, and then the receptacle once we're happy with the way we filed it out. Remember, the top is up here, so we'll take the top of the appropriate side, place it there, and then our support will go here, and then we're going to rivet this on. And before we rivet, we should fill up these holes with some rivets to make sure it is aligned properly. And it will only go together one way, so as long as we have the left and the right on each of the end properly on the bulkhead, then our pieces will only go together one way because the holes will line up as such. And we're going to repeat this operation for the other corner of the bulkhead. And then we can rivet after everything is lined up. In step 9, we want to take the bulkhead and dimple the holes along the top flange so they correspond to the dimples we made in the floor. Let's take a look. Now, the bulkhead is going to fit just like this, so what we want to do is check all the holes that we dimpled and where they match up with the holes on the bulkhead so that the dimples will match.
For just $29.95 or less after $10 rebate. Now that sounds like a trip worth taking. Less than $30 and somebody else does all the work. Well, there you go. Ford and Lincoln.
And we can trial fit this, see how it fits. Also, on the bulkhead, we want to dimple 2 locations for a set of nut plates. I'm going to dimple this area here and this area here, and then a K1008 nut plate after we dimple the ears, and they will fit right underneath here and right underneath here. And we'll go ahead and rivet that with the flush rivets. 120G L and R, and our duty here is on the top of each of these there are going to be 3 nut plates, so we're going to go ahead and dimple these as per our instructions and then install nut plates on the inside. So a total of 6 nut plates to be installed and riveted. And here they are completed. In step 14, we're going to assemble 2 sets of bearing brackets. This is F1206D, and if you notice, one side has a area cutout and the bearing will sit in there like this, and then that will be sandwiched into the other half, which will go on top. And then we will use 3 of the rivets shown here to tie these 2 brackets together. We will have to machine countersink these 3 holes as per our directions and squeeze these rivets into that location. And as I mentioned, there will be a second set we'll do the identical procedure with. we're going to rivet the bulkhead onto the two outer ribs. And of course we'll use the pre-drilled holes for lining these up and clecoing them together. And we'll go ahead now and rivet on both sides. Now in the next step, we want to add the two small ribs we worked with, and they will fit to the bulkhead and to the rib underneath. We'll cleco these in place first, and then rivet them as per our instructions. And notice the nut plates go up. This is a good place to use the wedge. And that's the completion of step 2. In step 3, we want to take 1206H, this rib here, and dimple the flange so that it matches the dimples we previously made in the floor. Because those holes will match up after we dimple them. We're all dimpled now, and it matches up with the baggage floor, so we'll go ahead now and rivet to the bulkhead as per our directions. And there's one of these on the other side also. Here's the ribs, and now our next step is going to be to rivet the floor to the rib and also to the bulkhead along the edges here. So we'll use the rivets as prescribed, cleco this first, and then rivet.
A lot of fun for us. Here's another high school memory.
And here's the areas marked off by the clecos where we have to rivet the baggage floor. We have all the rivets in place. Notice it was a combination of the standard rivets and some of the countersunk rivets. We used the appropriate rivet in the appropriate holes. Our next step is to insert 10 nut plates after dimpling their ears. So there's basically 5 on both sides for a total of 10. We need to be aware that there are 2 sizes of plate nuts that we need to use, the 11,008s and the 10,008s, and use them in the appropriate locations as per our directions. And here are the nut plates installed.
Selection of the best merchandise at 50 to 75% off retail. Outlook is free to join, so sign up now and start shopping today. Today's top premium brands at 50.
Now between the 2 ribs, we want to install F1206, which is a bracket, and there are 4 holes. And those 4 holes will match up with the 4 holes on the bulkhead. And we'll rivet that right in place. There. And in step 8, we're going to take our bearing assemblies we made, and note that The side with the flush rivets is going to go up against the side of our rib. And we're going to use the pre-drilled holes to match up with the pre-drilled holes in the side. And we'll cleco this in place. And of course there'll be one on each side. There'll be one on the other side. And here it is clecoed in place. And we'll go ahead and rivet this as per our directions. One of these will be on each side. Here are the components for step 9 and 10. We have 1250 left and right, and we will separate these. And then we have 1220B and 1220A. And then we'll rivet these components together as per our instructions. And here's how those 4 pieces go together. And we'll go ahead and rivet through 12 locations. Page 2104, our first step is to separate this part, number 1219, into 2 pieces. For step 2, we're going to rivet these 4 parts together. We have a pair of 1218s and a 1220A and B, and this is what they'll look like when we rivet together as per our directions. In step 3, we're going to take F1219A and machine countersink this area here so that we can install the nut plate underneath and have it flush on top. And of course there's a location for a nut plate at each end. Here are the parts for step 4 and 5. Here's the hardware with the bushings and the bolts and washers. And now we will assemble these as per our directions. Here's with the first bushing installed, the shorter one. And we tighten the bolt enough to allow the bushing to still rotate, but not have any slop. Still rotated in there. And now we'll go and put the second bolt and bushing in at this location. And here's the second bushing installed. In step 6 and 7, we're going to separate this stack of 4, part number 1017. And there's just a little part we need to cut in the middle and clean up. So we'll get twice as many components out of these. And the same with 1216. We'll cut this down the middle. Step 7, part number 1215. We want to remove this section right in here by just using our snips and trimming this out. So we open up our lightning hole, and we'll do that on all 4 left and 4 right of these seat ribs. So we have a total of 8 to remove that piece from. And we can simply use our snips and carefully cut that away. These components that we have just prepared will be used in our next step. In step 8, we're going to take one of our seat ribs and cleco those parts together. Now we're going to do 4 of these, 2 left and 2 right. And then we're going to rivet in these holes. The holes that are in common to all of the parts are final drilled and then riveted together for all 4 ribs. Now, on step 1 of 2105, we want to final drill using a number 19 bit the nut plate holes in 2 of these that we just finished. And then finally, when we come down to the very end here, we want to dimple the hole right here so that it matches the factory dimple right here. So we'll just dimple that hole. And we will do that on 2 of these seat ribs. Step 3, we're going to dimple 4 nut plates for each seat rib and then rivet them to the 4 locations as mentioned in our directions. And we'll do this for each of our 2 seat ribs. And then in step 4, we want to dimple 3 number 30 holes in both of these seat ribs. In step 5, we want to take the other remaining 4 seat ribs and final drill with our number 19 drill bit the 4 locations that are going to get nut plates. So we'll do that on all 4 of these. In step number 6, we're going to set aside 2 of these and just work on 2, the other 2, a left and a right. We then want to dimple and then install the 4 nut plates that are called out for in the directions. We're going to do this on 1 left and 1 right seat rib. So each one will get these 4 nut plates installed. Going to dimple the ears and then install them as per our directions. Now in step 7, we're going to take the seat rib, the left seat rib that we prepared in step 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to prepare to install nut plates by dimpling these 2 locations and the corresponding nut plates that go with them in these 2 locations as per our directions. In step 8, we want to countersink these 2 holes, machine countersink, in the flaperon stops. There are 2 of these, and we'll do the 2 holes Step 9, we're going to assemble these components. The left side that we previously just installed the nut plates in, and the pulley bracket assembly that we built previously. And we'll go ahead and rivet. There's 3 rivets right here, and then 4 rivets right here. And of course, we'll use the appropriate rivets for our countersunk holes here and here. And the seat rib we made in step 5 will now be riveted to the other side of our pulley bracket, just like that. And it's conclusion of step 10.
That's your very sweet present.
That's Bill Sweet Price Monthly. Yeah, okay. I'll keep it.
In step 11, we're going to use the right seat rib back from step 1, and we're simply going to dimple and install nut plates, just like we did before, by dimpling these and the associated holes. Now, in step 12, we're going to take the flapper-on mixer that we previously had built and insert it into the holes here. And we're going to rivet that on in these locations. And on the opposite side, if we turn this over, we're going to place our aileron stop also. Cleco together, it looks like this. And we can go ahead now and rivet this together. Now, before we go to step 13, we need to branch off and install the autopilot servo bracket. This is an option which many people may want to install. We're going to take the rib from back in step 5, this is the right rib, and we're going to remove this area in here. So I'm going to use my snips and take this area out. And after using the snips, use your file to clean up the edges. Next, we're going to take the servo doubler 1269, and on the opposite side, this is going to fit around this hole, and we're going to cleco this in place. The holes will match up nicely. Then, with this clecoed, the doubler clecoed in place, we're going to match drill 7 holes as per the direction. 4 of them are size 19 and the rest are size 30, and we'll drill those right into the rib. And there are the holes match drilled. I'm going to remove this rivet right here so that I can swing this nut plate out of the way when we want to insert the bolt for that hole there. As you can see, it's awfully close, and by removing this rivet I can swing the nut plate out of the way. Now I will take this apart and deburr these holes that I've drilled and then put it back in place and rivet in the next direction, as per the next direction. And here the 6 rivets are in place and the nut plate has been moved out of the way. Now we're going to install it to our other right rib, and we're going to end up riveting these 3 rivets on the flange. So I'll cleco this and then rivet. We're going to rivet those 3 right there. I have it clecoed on the side to hold it in place, and I can go ahead now and rivet right in here.
And now for the bonus round. Earth is to moon as pancake is to...
Rice rum?
Correct. Never let the hand that feeds you. Why not?
Because it hasn't been washed?
Correct. All Wii consoles connect to the internet, which means...
It means I can now watch it.
And then we inserted the screw as per the directions right in the corner, and then we'll swing the nut plate back in place and re-rivet that. And in step 13 we rivet the last of the rivets for the seat rib to the center section. Here's a pair of 1267A and 1267B. We are going to dimple the nut plate holes, and there's 2 of them. And then on 1267B, we're going to machine countersink the 2 sets of nut plate holes. So countersink on these and dimple on these. And then we will install and rivet the nut plates. In step number 3, we're going to take one of our remaining right ribs that we set aside, and we're going to dimple the 4 number 30 holes in this upper sloped area. We're going to take our seat rib assembly, the one with the flapper-on mixer inside, and attach the brackets we were just preparing. Now one will be clecoed in this location. And the other one will be clecoed like this. And we'll use the 3 holes and cleco it in place right here. So I'm going to go ahead now and rivet, as per our directions, the flanges here, and then for the piece on the back side, the flange right here. And now we're going to take the remaining rib that we just dimpled in step 3 and attach it to both of these flanges with rivets. And I will cleco this first. here's the completion of step 4. In the remaining left seat rib, we're going to go and dimple the 4 number 30 holes, just like we had done previously. And now we're going to take the pulley bracket assembly that we created previously and attach the brackets in a similar fashion to seat rib assembly. Each of these will go and we'll rivet these on in place just like we did, and then we'll have one more rib on the other side. And now we will take our last rib and attach it, cleco, and rivet as per our directions. Now we're going to cut the hinge as per step 7. Now we want to cut this 20 inches, so we're going to measure this off. Now I'm actually going 20 and a half because we want to make sure that the eyelet ends just like in the picture of our directions. So I'm actually going to cut a 20 and a half and then trim off the other end. Otherwise, if we cut exactly a 20, in my case, we'll have the eyelets in the wrong position. And we can simply use some snips to cut that. I'm leaving the pin in, but I am not going to cut through the pin. We've cut the 2 hinges in half, giving us 4 hinges, and they should look just like in your instructions, with the eyelet starting on the left side and our 10 inches ending over there. And we are also asked to remove the 2 center eyelets, and we'll mark those and use our bandsaw to remove them with a nice straight line. And we will not be using the hinge with these. Now in step 7 and 8, we have we created a hole, and then on the reverse side, on the flush side as they call it, we've drawn a line as per our directions from that hole all the way across to the other side. And we did this on each of the 4 hinges. Here is the seat floor, 1225L. There's also one for the right side also. We're going to take our hinge that we prepared earlier and cleco the hole into this hole right here. And remember, on the back side we have a line which we're going to help locate when we drill the rest of the holes in this line. And then we can turn it over and look for the line through the holes, and we will then match drill through the holes in the bottom into the hinge. We're also going to do exactly the same thing with the other hinge, with the set of holes right next to it. And then flip this around to the bottom, looking for the lines through the holes, and match drilling and clecoing as we go. And then I can cleco before drilling the rest. And with all the holes drilled, going to remove the hinges, deburr them, and then rivet on as per our instructions. And here's the conclusion of step 2 with the hinges riveted in. Note also that a couple of locations are not to be riveted at this time as per your directions. In step 3, we're going to dimple the holes in the area of the nut plates here and along the edge up here. And then we also want to dimple the holes specified back here. Now in step 4, we're going to dimple and install nut plates at these 3 locations. And we're going to, of course, repeat everything we've done to the other side. Step 5. The seat floor support needs to be separated into 2 pieces by removing this area in the middle. One way to do that is to take your bandsaw blade on your table saw and start here at the center and then just follow up in 2 passes along each of these areas here. And I cut out the center section, and now I just need to clean up the edges. And I'll use my snips and a file. Now in step 6, we're going to take the flapper-on rib assembly that we built earlier and our remaining left seat rib assembly and line it up right here. And then we're going to take our floor that we just finished building and we're going to slide in this seat. And everything should line up real nice, and we're going to go ahead and rivet as per our directions the ribs to the seat pan floor. And that will include the rivets from the rib flanges to the seat. And there will be a couple of spots where we will not rivet, and we'll circle those to match our directions so that we don't accidentally rivet them at this time. And here's the conclusion of step 6. And there is one hole behind here that we leave off unriveted as per our directions. Step 7, we want to add the nut plates to these areas here. So we will dimple the nut plates and then install them using our rivets and our squeezer. And we have a nut plate up at the front here also, with the hole at one end and the 2 mounting locations at the other end. Now in step 8, we're going to install the floor support. And that will install by attaching these holes. We won't rivet the very end holes, and they match up very nicely like this. And we'll go ahead, cleco, and rivet. And the very first and last hole will remain unriveted. And for our final step, we want to install a snap bushing into each of the holes located here on each of the ribs, and this little plastic bushing which will be pushed in from this side and snapped into place. So there'll be 4 of those, one for each of the ribs. And that completes step 9. Now we're going to repeat this operation with the pulley bracket seat rib assembly and the remaining rib. And we will then repeat all of these procedures by riveting on the seat floor as we did in the previous example. And then, of course, install the nut plates and the floor support, just like we did before. And here we all finished with the nut plates in place. And remember, there's just a couple holes that we don't want to rivet as per our instructions. That would be the holes located here and here. And then went all the way at the other end over there. Now we're going to attach the seat floor assembly to our center section. Now we'll rotate the unit around so that we can get to the underside. Now this will allow us to cleco the ribs to the center section. Now I'm going to rivet from the inside out, and then except for the flange on the top, that I will rivet from the outside in. Now we can install the other seat assembly, and it will line up with the pre-drilled holes. And now that we have the flange clecoed in, we can rotate the unit up to get the ribs underneath. And we put our clecos in place, and we will commence riveting just as before.
An older friend, all at the same time that the White Album came out, at the same time that the older friend is one of the first in our little community of Placerville.
This is the bulkhead side assembly. This is the right side one. There's a right and a left. And we're going to attach that at the 4 holes on our seat pan. And this will fit right like this, and I'll cleco it in place. And now we're going to rivet this in place and repeat for the other side. Now, in the next step, we're going to install the bulkhead cap, which is this piece, and it will fit between the 2 uprights here. And notice in your directions it goes on the forward side. So I'll cleco this in place right here. Note that there's 1 hole towards the bottom that we are not to rivet. I've circled it. And the flange is on the forward side. If we go around and look at the other side, and there are 3 holes which we do not want to rivet here that I've marked with arrows. In step 3, we're going to insert a bushing and roller into the area in between here. Here's the plastic roller, and a bushing needs to be pressed into the center. I'll use the vise and push this in. It's a nice tight fit. And then once this is pressed inside, it will be inserted right in this location, in this orientation. I pressed the bushing into the roller, and then we're going to use a bolt and washer to secure this. At the other end will be one of our nut plates. Let's take a look at this installation. Insert this from the bottom, and a bolt from the front. And there it goes. I just need to tighten the bolt in. And we'll repeat for the other side, though on the other side the roller will be in a 180-degree different position. And the roller should turn freely. In step 4, we attach the bulkhead cap to the other side. We have the control column bracket, and there's actually one for the other side. These two will be sandwiched together, something like that. But in between them, we have the spacer. Now in the spacer, notice there's a hole right here that designates that that is the top, because there's only one on the top. And this will fit, and the holes will match up. This will go on top, and we'll cleco this together. And there's the piece, cleco together. All of the holes match up, going all the way through. Now, as per our directions, we want to machine countersink the 4 holes around this bearing area, and we're going to do that on both sides. Haven't done it to this side yet, but this side it is done. We want to deburr the parts so that they fit together nice and tight, so make sure we have no ridges around the holes on the inside. And there's 2 of these, there's a left and a right, and then a bearing will go in the middle, and we will rivet them together. Now when we rivet these, we're going to have it flush on both sides, because we're going to countersink the holes on both sides. And when we squeeze them, it'll end up being flush on both sides. Before we put it together with rivets, we will sneak this bearing in right here, which will be sandwiched in between the 2 parts then. And there we have the flush rivets, and on the other side, flush. Now these protrude just a little bit due to the length of the rivet. And then we'll go ahead and finish this off with our pop rivets as per our directions. And then on the top we need to machine countersink the holes for the nut plates. And of course, we're going to make 2 of these. In step 4, we're going to separate the 2 pieces by removing this area here with our snips and cleaning it up. In step 5, we're going to separate these 2 pieces at the center here. In step 6, we're going to prepare the 1203 bulkhead. And those preparations will include countersinking the nut plate attach holes along the top up here. And there's a number 30 size holes that also need to be opened up as per the directions. In addition, we need to use our snips and file and clean up this hole so we get our circle back. Simply snip this away, and then also open up these holes to their prescribed size as per the directions. In step 8, we're going to take the bulkhead flange that we prepared earlier and cleco and rivet it onto the bulkhead at each corner on the left and right side. So we'll repeat this for the other side of the bulkhead. In step 9, we're going to prepare the receptacles. by filing these out so that they match our spar stubs of our wings very nicely. And then we want to label them left and right and clean up all the edges as necessary. In step 10, we're going to locate and rivet the spar receptacle. This location here, and all the holes will line up very nicely. And notice the small flat here, that indicates the top. And then the support will go on top of here. Now we're going to cleco and then rivet with just 2 rivets at this time. And we'll also drill out all of the holes to make sure they're a full size 30, just to make sure the rivets will fit. With all of that thickness in there, we might need to clean out the holes a little bit. And here we have it riveted with the 2 rivets they specified. I'll turn it around. And the 2 rivets there. Now we'll go and repeat this assembly and riveting on the other side. Step 1 on page 2111, we want to separate the 2 doublers for the bulkhead, and there's actually 2 sets of these, so we'll end up with 4 pieces after we cut them using our bandsaw. In step 2, we're going to take the bulkhead doublers that we prepared previously and cleco and rivet them on the front side of our bulkhead. Here's the back side. And we want to be careful to observe the holes that will not get riveted, that we're going to leave opened. There's going to be 4 here and 4 here on each side, and then 2 here and 2 here. And we should observe the types of rivets that are called out for in our instructions. We're going to use solid rivets in this area, and then our pulled rivets over here, as per the directions. And we'll repeat this for both sides. And here's what it looks like at the completion of step 2 with the solid rivets and the pulled rivets. Step 3 will have us rivet these flanges together by squeezing in 4 rivets per doubler. And of course we left open the holes that we were supposed to. Now let's turn it over and work on the front side where we will mount our control assemblies. And this is actually the back. And now we're going to install the control column mount that we built previously. The slant is the up, and we'll find the pre-drilled holes over in this location, and we'll mount right here. I'll cleco this in place. We do have a couple of nut plates at the very top up here, which we need to rivet in place also. Note that the rivets are pulled from the front side. We're looking at the back here. And there's the nut plate up at the top. And then in step 5, we want to install 4 nut plates underneath the lip on each of these. I've installed these 2 here, and I need to continue with the other 6, 4 per assembly. On step 1, page 2112, we're going to separate this doubler. Step 2 on page 2112, we want to install 17 nut plates all across the top and then there will be 4 down in that area. Here are all of the nut plates installed. And as the directions stated, we don't want to add the nut plate at each of the ends. We'll leave that open. Step 3 will have us install the doubler on the bulkhead. And the holes match up very nicely. There is one on each side. And we will rivet this in place using the prescribed rivets as specified. And at the front, notice that we don't rivet the bottom holes. Solid rivets at the top and our pulled rivets along the side as per the directions. And we'll repeat this for the second doubler on the other side. In step 1 on page 2113, we're going to install our completed bulkhead to the ribs. And we're simply going to cleco them initially to the flanges of the ribs. In the next step, we can go ahead and rivet. There will be a couple of rivets at the top, which we will leave out as per the directions, the 2 outbound ribs. And also the one at the very end here, we'll leave this off, but the rest we can go ahead and rivet. In step 3 and 4, we're going to take the seat ramp floor. There's a left and there's a right. We need to dimple the nut plate attach holes along the edge, and there's one in the front and there's one back here. And to make sure we dimple in the correct way, in other words down and not up, we can place this where it's supposed to go and see how these dimples we're going to make need to fit an existing dimple in our piece here. And right along this flange we have our dimpled nut plate holes. So when we go to dimple the edge, we want them to match up. And then also we need to dimple the number 30 holes along the edge, which will match up with the flange of the rib also. Step number 5, we need to increase the size of this hole, the forward hole, to 1/2 inch as per the directions. Then we can install onto the flanges. And we'll double check that all of our dimples actually correspond to the dimples in the flanges below. And we'll go ahead then and rivet as per our directions. And here's the completion of step number 6 with the rivets in place. Now step 7 is going to have us install nut plates where they are obviously needed, here and here. So there's going to be 4 along this edge, and then one in the front, and we'll use the rivets as prescribed. And one down here. And the one on the front is right here. We'll have to reach through the side, get our arm back up there to install that one. We'll use Clecos while we're riveting. And the directions tell us what type of rivets to use. We're going to repeat all of this, of course, for the other side down at this end. And here is our completion of step 7 with all of the nut plates installed. In step 8 and 9, we're going to take the control column and open up all of the holes to their final size, and that will help clean off the powder coating from the holes. And then we're going to insert this through the lightning holes so that it sits down in this section here. And we'll slide this in from the end. When clearing the holes, you may find that you can't get a drill in here because the holes are too close to the shaft. A drill bit with a pliers can be used to rotate the bit into the holes and clean them out, because we need to be able to get bolts in here adequately, and the powder coating on it is pretty strong and will restrict the bolt unless we twist the drill bits through it as directed. We also want to prepare the hardware as called out in the instructions and have that ready for installation. We will insert it from the end, and we can disconnect the support here as necessary to get a little more room, but we're basically going to feed it, and it'll take some twisting to get it through all of the lightning holes as necessary, but it will go through. Here's a close-up of the arm installed. And in my case, I got 2 washers on each side. I used a little super glue to help me slide the 2 washers in together as a unit and tighten everything up, and it works very nice on the bearing. For step 2, 3, and 4 on page 2114, we're going to prepare the 6 step ribs. There are 3 left and 3 right, and we will go ahead and dimple the edges as prescribed and then attach them to our bulkhead. In step 2, we're going to dimple the top flange of 1 left and 1 right rib. Step 3, we're going to dimple the nut plates at the very top of the 1202 bulkhead. In step 4, we rivet the ribs onto the bulkhead, and I'm using the little triangle. Makes it easier to get the hand riveter in place here. And we can bend the rib out slightly to get the rivet gun in there. And here's step 4 with all the ribs attached. In step 5, we need to dimple this bottom hole right here on this end rib and the one at the other end also. and then the corresponding hole here where it will attach both sides. And in the next step, we cleco but do not rivet the bulkhead on the ends of the rib. And our dimpled hole is right down here. Step 7 will have us insert grommets or bushings in various locations as per the directions. These just snap in very nicely. And various other locations in the structure that we have built thus far. On page 21-15, we have the corner skins. We've got A, B, C, D, E, and F, and then we have a left and right. So our job is to simply, at this stage, separate them down the center using our snips or bandsaw. Now we do want to keep these labeled properly because they're very difficult to tell apart, though they are different. Our directions will show, however, if you do misplace them, there's a tiny notch, tiny notch that will identify the A, B, C, D, E, and F. Tiny notch there. In other words, this is B. On the C, there'd be a tiny notch right in here, etc. And this is in the directions. But I will label these as I go after I separate them, keeping the left and right side marked as well. For the next few steps, we need to work on the underside of our structure. So we have placed 2 sawhorses covered with towels next to each other and inverted our structure on them. It's not perfectly balanced, but it is stable enough to add the components that now go on the bottom side. Now we're on the right side of the fuselage, upside down. And we're at about the center section, and we're going to install one of our corners. Now this is F, and it matches very nicely with the holes. So I'm just going to go ahead and cleco this in place, and then we will continue. After F will come E, and then D, and we'll just keep overlapping them, and they'll fit very nicely here. Here's a view from the other direction with all 6 corners in place. Now we're going to go ahead and rivet as per the directions, making sure that we leave off the rivets where we are told. For example, no riveting along the seat rib or along the very bottom down here. And then 4 rivets right here. But the rest of them we will go ahead and rivet. And here's the completion of the riveting. Now for step 4, we want to perform the identical task to the other side. And looking from the other direction, here's the other side. In step 5, we're going to cleco the corner skin in place. this piece here, and this will go right like this. And in step 6, we will go ahead and rivet along this line here and leave this just clecoed for now. Then in step 7, we want to repeat for the other side.
Fixed mortgage rates have dropped to 4.375%, 4.56% APR.
In step 8 and step 9, we're simply going to separate these parts using our bandsaw. And in particular, we want to mark these before we separate them, label them as per the directions, so we don't mix them up because they are slightly different even though they look the same. On page 2116, steps 1 and 2 will have us working on our bottom skin. Our first step is going to be to dimple around the inspection holes for nut plates. So we need to dimple holes all the way. There's 4 per inspection hole. And of course it's important that we understand whether we have the top or the bottom side of the skin. The recess in my example here is up, so this is the top of the skin. The other side will go on the bottom. So obviously we want to dimple so that the flush side will be on the bottom of the skin and the nut plate will be mounted on the inside right here. And then step 2 will have us rivet with flush rivets 4 nut plates for our 5 holes total, for a total of 20 nut plates. In step 3, they want us to break or bend the edges, the sides of our bottom skin. Now that means to put a slight bend in it down so that when it overlaps on top of another skin, it makes a nice tight seam, if you will. So I'm going to use my little tool. There are other ways to do this. This is the one we used before on the tail cone skins. The metal will slide in between these 2 rollers, and I will give it just a gentle pressure, twisting down. Again, make sure you bend it in the correct direction because there'll be a piece of skin underneath it. This is the bottom, and I'll just roll this along gently. I'll do that to both sides, just a gentle bend along the edges. Step 4, we want to cleco the bottom skin to the bottom of our fuselage skeleton. In step 5, we're going to attach the bottom stiffeners that we separated early. Now, it's important that the hole go towards the front of the fuselage, and in my case, the front is that way. Now, these are going to be installed underneath the skin surrounding the hole. So I'm going to slip them in from underneath here. And if we look, we'll find a set of holes that match up nicely with the piece, so we can locate those ahead of time. There will be a total of 6 of these, 1 here, 1 next to it, and then 4 more. And this will go underneath, and I will simply cleco. I'll look for the holes to line up, and I'll put a few more clecos in along the way. And then I will continue. There's 2 on each side of the 3 holes for a total of 6. And if we look into the channel, we can confirm that all of the holes are forward. Step 6, we're going to attach the doublers that we previously cut out and place them as directed on the bottom skin, and the holes will line up nicely. Remember, you mark these A and then B will go next. And it will share one of the holes of the doubler of the stiffener underneath. And then B will be situated right here. With these clecoed in place, we'll go put the other 8 on there, making sure we install them as per our directions. And here are all the doublers for step 6 that are clecoed in place. Now in step 7, we're ready to rivet the bottom. I'm going to add quite a few more clecos so that as I rivet, each hole is surrounded by a set of clecos to hold the skin nice and tight to the underlying structures. There's just a few areas, as outlined in the directions, that do not get riveted at this time. I will mark those with a pen lightly and then prepare to rivet the entire bottom. And these will all be the pulled rivets which will be used. There's an area, for an example, at the edge where we won't rivet at this time. And at the very edge down here also is a no rivet zone.